that kind of dictates, okay, so this stuff's all kind of rebuilt. So this, if I go into solo mode here, so like we were doing the Z-modeler stuff, this is what these Z-modeler objects start out as. It's just nothing, you know? This one is a little bit more complicated here. And probably looking at this, what I did was sculpt and then rebuild. Same thing for this handle here. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's go back to our sculpt here. So if I'm going to do anything organic or a little bit more complicated than just straight up this type of shape here, and we kind of went off the deep end when we were doing Z-modeler stuff, but you get the point. So if I do Shift Z to bring this thing back. Oh yeah, so we're gonna do the handle. Anything that's, if I hit Z and then we bring this opacity back. So see how this is like, it's trimmed in and then it kind of smooths out to this nice broad shape, and then it does something weird in here. I will absolutely, and this is another reason why I love ZBrush, is I can tackle problems from multiple solutions. So I can just go in and sculpt it first and then rebuild it. So let's do a little bit of that. So I'm gonna go Z, drop this opacity down here. There we go. And then we can, of course, go to our Z plugin. We'll draw our document over here, and then we've got our custom one. And you could assign a hotkey to that, I suppose, but that's okay. So now I do have this cube just sitting out here. So I'm going to do Shift D to go out of dynamic mode, and then I will hold down Alt to move this into place, and then I can go to like snap the mesh center, and I'll move this down. And let's say I'm going to make this handle really quickly. So I'll kind of get the base shape of what I want. Instead of Z-modeling this thing though, Z-modeling, I can just, it doesn't really matter, because what I'm going to do is just turn this into a Dynamesh. So I'll just take, you know what, I don't even need this thing, like just, I don't know, I don't care. Mike, what are you doing? Just make this shape. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn off blur, turn off project, just hit Dynamesh and get a nice Dynamesh here. It's 342,000. If I want to work a little bit lower, I can drop that resolution down, control drag. If you control drag and it doesn't do anything, just tap your object a little bit and then control drag, it'll update it. Now in this case, what I can use is just use like clip curve to go, okay, I'm going to make, and just to make this a little bit simpler of a demo and not do this whole weirdo big shape I have back here, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go up to this point. And then, so I'm just going to use clip. Now, clip can sometimes be a little bit squirrely too, not necessarily in this case, but what might be a better option here, let me see if I can, okay, so for instance, if I clip this straight down, it looks like, oh, did a great job, right? And then you go here and you're like, wait, what is that? And I Dynamesh it, and there's like a little thin strip here. What it's basically doing is pulling those polygons straight down, and if these polygons go straight down, it's hovering over nothing. So it's going to pull 10,000 polygons just in a straight line. So instead of doing that, what you can also do is trim curve, and what that's going to do is make a straight line. It's going to slice and then fill a hole. Now, fill hole operations don't do it in symmetry, so that's where I would just do a geometry modified topology mirror and weld. But it also gives you another polygroup, so that's kind of nice. So instead of clipping, I will sometimes just go in here and use trim curve. And so there's the, it looks like a magazine kind of pops out of the bottom here. Of course, this is a sci-fi energy gun, and this isn't a revolver, so, and I'm not really a concept artist. I just play one on TV, so, you know, this isn't the best concept weapon. I admit that. Immediately, wholeheartedly admit that. But we have our basic shape here, and then now at this point I might feel more comfortable once I have my basic shape to go in here and use my clip to kind of go, okay, here, and I can always just clean up the clip later. I just wanted to show you guys what I was talking about. Now when I'm clipping, if I hold down Control Shift, I can use my space bar to move this thing around. If I hold down Control Shift and I tap Alt once, that'll give me like a nice Bezier curve. So you can tap Alt once and then tap Alt again, and just keep tapping Alt once to kind of trim through here. If you hold down Control Shift and tap twice, you'll get nice, clean cuts like that. So kind of dial in what you're looking for. So that's the basic shape, right? And just Dynamesh this thing. These little knobby things I can always build in later. I'm just trying to get the basic shape here. And if I'm going to do this for real, I'd probably like make a shape like this so it looks like nice and settled in there, right? So if I go out of, hit Shift Z to go out of that mode, you're going to see, whoa, we're way too big. So probably I'd have more of the gun built, so I would have a better idea of how wide this thing needed to be. I would have a better idea of how wide the thing is to make it, but I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it here. So, and I'm always just control dragging to re-Dynamesh the stuff. So in order to get this shape here, I would just sculpt it first and then rebuild it. And we'll do Shift Z. So we were kind of like, okay, we've eyeballed this, going back to what we were working on earlier. We eyeballed this handle, we have a Dynamesh on here. Now I want to make this basic shape. So this is where it's easier for me, and again, your mileage may vary, but for me it's a lot easier to go in here for these type of shapes and just do, let's go ahead and do a little bit of smooth, kind of take the edge off. And we can go through here and I can eyeball this, and because we turned spotlight projection off in our samples here, we can just simply go through here and like kind of build in a little, we're using trim dynamic, and then we can make our brush size bigger and then a bigger trim dynamic here. If we want to even, we can go to the top and then we can say, you know what, I want this to go to a nice, so I'm going to take my clip brush, tap Alt once, we'll go to a nice smooth transition right down here. So between these two, I can just use my smooth brush and then maybe my trim dynamic and then maybe my H polish. And now we just transition from a thinner edge to a thicker edge. If I want to go in here and tighten this up, I can go in here to my pinch brush and I can just pinch this together. So I can go like, okay, I want this to go a little bit thinner to thicker. And then when I get thicker, I want this to really broaden out. So that's just easier for me to figure out really quickly. And even while I was talking about it, you can see how quickly that can go, rather than sitting there and Z-modelering it and trying to get this thing to work in subdivisions, right? Because I can just go through here and smooth it and be like, okay, tighter to softer. And then on the front here, you know, this is the back of the grip. So, you know, first thing I would probably do is just go through and clip through this. Speaking of, even on this concept here, on weapons, it's a lot, like most weapons aren't just like, oh, big boxy thing. You can just go to the back here and just like, almost immediately just clip that thing down to a shape like this. This is usually a lot more representative of how guns and weapons are made, this type of look. Of course, you'd want to split this off first before you clip something like this, but see how I get that nice transition shape here? Split it off into its own separate piece and then just start clipping from the back and you'll be in pretty good shape probably. Anyway, same thing for the handle that we're working on here. Like from the front here, that's our shape. I'm just going to make my camera go to about here, so we're going looking straight back. And then we want a nice curved area for where we put our fingers, so we can kind of dial that in. Hold down Alt. And sometimes, see how it kind of bends back in? So sometimes I'll go Control Shift, I'll drag it at an angle, and then hold down Alt, and that'll give me a little bit more leeway here. So something like this, although this little bumpy thing comes out, but then I miss all of this down here. So what I can do is I can get that out of the way just by getting rid of visibility. And then I can go through here and really clip the hell out of this bottom one here. Control Shift, switch back to clip curve here. There we go. And again, come in at an angle and then hold down Alt, and then you just do a really nice soft curve and then bring that back. So if you wanted it to go from a corner transition to where you kind of put your fingers, you can do that. But really looking at this now, I'm thinking something more like this. Yeah. And then if you want to add those little wobbly things in here, this is again where you could come in with your standard brush and just build it in. Or you could insert a cylinder or a sphere-ender or a sphere and blob it out and then Dynamesh it together. But this worked fine. Dynamesh all this together. We have Dynamesh turned on. So now you can go over here to H polish here and get these shapes going.